And I guess now at this point, for about the next 20-30 minutes, if you have a question for either one, or if you want a group, whatever, if you want to stand and ask your question, we'll go from there.
I don't have a question.
I've been called, I have a few people that's called me and asked me to ask questions. I mean, I have some of my own, but as Brian will know, I'm the fire department, I'm the most vocal person we have. And I'm the only one that dares stand up and ask questions. So, but I did have a call from a political person that says, Richfield City has been talking about some franchise taxes that could or could not be passed on and added on to our taxes without even the public knowing. I guess my question for you as candidates is, how do you feel about taxes, particularly franchise taxes, and what's your intent once you're on the council as far as raising taxes for us as citizens?
Anybody want to start with that?
I'll start first.
Well, Brian's been
I'm not.
minutes.
My opinion of franchise taxes is it's the most chicken way to get money out of the public that they've ever invented. And you blame it on the utilities. I don't agree with them. I don't agree with raising taxes, period. When we come in, we were at a 300 and something thousand in the red when we went on the council 4 years ago, and we went through the budget and did the cuts, did the things that was necessary to get our budget in line and maintain that. We've been able to bring a lot of the stuff we cut back into service, brought some of the people back on, but I think franchise taxes, in my opinion, are terrible. They affect the people that are on limited incomes, and they affect the businesses the worst. So, and that's my opinion.
Well, I'll tell you this, when it came to us on the council once before, I was opposed to it. I'm still opposed to it. I think we've made the needed cuts over the past 4 years to maintain the services that we have today without limiting anything. I mean, we have great services. We've been fiscally responsible the last 4 years, and I don't see a need for it, an increase. And especially to go through a franchise tax without any kind of input from the public. I think if we're going to raise taxes, it needs to be like the par tax was. It goes on the ballot, and the public decides if they're willing to pay for it. It's majority.
Anyone else? You got?
I'll stand up. I've been called. When a franchise tax on utilities was considered, the state allows, just to give you some details, the state allows cities to charge up to a 6% franchise tax for utilities, power and phone.
I think that's correct. Not like TV.
And most cities in the state have fully utilized that tax. The city of Richfield has utilized that tax in the past to the tune of 3%. 4 years ago, as you'll all remember, the economy went in the toilet. And what Brian says is true. When he and Mike came on the council 4 years ago, we weren't $300,000 in the hole, but the state requires the city of Richfield to maintain a balanced budget. And if we don't balance our budget every year, there are penalties to be paid, and I guess potentially there's jail time to be served by the people who refuse to balance the budget, which would be us. And so we were looking for different ways to balance our budget. Now, in order for the city to run, you all understand that in order for the city to run, taxes have to be levied, because the city doesn't get its services for free either. And so one of the things that was considered was increasing the franchise tax that we collect on utilities from 3% to the allowed 6%. At that time, the council made the conscious decision not to do that, but to do what we had to do to cut our budget to stay within the budget and the monies that we collect. In order to do that, we had to lay off a few people. We had to cut back some services. Our roads have suffered somewhat in the last 4 years because we haven't been able to do the maintenance and upgrading on our roads that we like to do and that we wanted to do. And so we made a conscious decision not to engage that particular franchise. Now, it's still out there. We could still utilize that if we chose to as a means of garnering further income for the city. But the current council has chosen not to utilize that as a means whereby to balance the city's budget. So I hope that answers that.
Just have one comment, kind of my philosophy on it. As Richard said, you know, taxes are a necessary evil, but you have to use the money appropriately and responsibly. I've often said, when I'm in position, if I were lucky to do that, the way I would run a budget is the way you run your own household. When things are tight, you look to cut things. You don't just run down and say, well, give me some more. That's what our kids do. And, you know, my wallet's kind of empty on some mornings for my kids. But you can't do that all the time. I applaud what we've done in the city. You know, I wasn't there when we voted on the franchise tax, and I agree that's kind of a chicken way to get the tax, because it's a tax without any voice. You just have the right to slap it on them and say, well, take it, that's it. I applaud what we did in the city before. You know, when things are tight, the city looked and said, okay, what can we cut? And I noticed some things right away. Suddenly there wasn't a water cooler in the lobby at the city office. We used to pay for a flower arrangement to be brought in every week. We didn't do that. We had some mats that were rolled out, and they said, well, maybe we don't need those mats every time, and instead of contracting for lawns to be mowed around the city office, maybe we have the city employees do it. That's responsible spending. That's what we have to continue to do before we ever consider raising taxes. Say, how can we cut, how can we be more responsible and look for the waste, because in our own budgets we waste. Right? So that's what we have to do, is make sure we are responsible.
Come on, together. All of us have opinions for certain reasons, and I've watched the city council in the last few months talk about impact fees. And they're probably wondering what I'm going to say negatively about it. I'm not. I've watched them struggle with how much we should raise the impact fees for building a home in our area. It's been a lot of interesting conversations. My two opponents and I have several things in common. We've been children, we've been young people, we've raised our family, and I think we're all grandpas. You a grandpa?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I have entered one more category that they have not yet entered, and it's a very interesting time of life. It's called retirement and being on a fixed income. And so I think I could give a good perspective when we're sitting in council meeting just talking about raising taxes in any way, because people on fixed income need to be considered, and we just can't lose sight of that. Now, I want you to know I've watched these councilmen, and they are very good. They don't just willy-nilly raise anything. They have great respect for the public, and I really like Richard Barnett's idea on these things, and that's why he should stay in the council.
Push that point home.
I just wanted to say too, a lot of people don't realize that Richfield runs on sales tax. We are not like a lot of larger cities that have funds coming from other areas. So we run on sales tax, and that's why it's so important for us to try to increase our business and get our sales tax back from the state. It's important for us because that's our operating funds. That's how we operate. I think if you ask anyone up here who is running for office right now if they wanted to have a franchise tax, I think you'd hear everyone say no. I think that the City Council in almost every instance has tried to be very above board, very honorable about how we handle money and what happens. And that's gone on for decades. I think that responsibility, that sense of making sure that the public knows how the money is spent, where it's coming from, and not taxing above and beyond. Last night, as I was sitting in city council, I too questioned these guys. That it had been recommended that they have a $7,000 impact fee, and they chose not to do that. They're very responsible, they're very honorable, and I think any of these candidates that are here would agree with that. I think we try to be, knowing the kind of community we have and the kind of people that live in this community, we know that it's very important to be very fiscally responsible.
Years ago, I had the opportunity to work as a congressional aide for Congresswoman Enid Green for a couple of years, and I respected the way that she would answer questions by starting with a yes, I agree with that, or no, I don't. And so I'll start by saying that no, I would not support any sort of a franchise tax increase, because it is exactly as Brian put, you're throwing a tax out there that hasn't had much, if anything, from the community in terms of feedback. One thing that does concern me, kind of segueing into a related topic, is over the past year we've had numerous public hearings about different things. And I know that there are folks in the community that have interest in these types of things. The impact fees are a set of them. But the requirements that the city has to notify folks is that little bitty thing in the newspaper under the public notices. And I think a lot of them go, I don't think a lot of folks see those. And so I've noticed over the past year that we'll go through a public hearing on something, and time again we don't have anyone there to speak about it. And then after we make the decision and it gets out into the community, then we have folks coming to us and telling us, they're giving us their 2 cents, and why did we do this and why did we do that. I know that legally we don't have to notice the community in any other way, but I'd like to see us maybe do a little better job of giving notice to our citizens about things that are being discussed, so that we can get better feedback, get input, and make the decisions that are best for the majority of the community.
Well, franchise tax would be, I wouldn't support it, obviously. It'd be something, a learning experience for me to become on the city council to study and learn a lot about. It's an interesting topic, it's taboo. But my thinking initially would be, instead of the ownership necessarily being on the council, it would be a community responsibility as well to not have to bring up the fact of a franchise tax. What can we do individually to keep our city up to par as far as our own homes, our neighborhoods? How much do we spend? How much do we help keep the costs down? As Kevin said, I know it's going to city council meetings. There's not a lot of people there, but you can't go there every Tuesday to listen. But community input would be what I would seek before any type of tax, and to see what people on their own have done. Because where I would listen to people's concerns, I've always asked folks, well, do you have a remedy for your question? And to me, it's a two-way conversation when it comes to any type of adverse change in the community, and taxes obviously would be the top of the list. So that's how I would approach it.